For years, society has used one line to frighten women. If you don't get married, you'll have a miserable old age. But when we look closer, this fear has little to do with women, and everything to do with men projecting their own anxieties. Visit any hospital or elderly care center, and the reality becomes clear. Elderly men without wives often suffer greatly because they lack caregivers. In contrast, many elderly women are surrounded by daughters, sisters, or close female friends. Few are actually cared for by husbands. The truth is, men are deeply afraid of loneliness in their old age, so they impose that fear onto women. In patriarchal societies, a man's social value is usually tied to his career, wealth, or achievements. While he might enjoy respect during his prime years, once he grows old or loses status, he is quickly forgotten. Women, however, have always built richer, more resilient social networks. From shopping with friends, chatting with neighbors, joining community groups, or dancing together in public squares, women maintain bonds that sustain them well into later life. This is why no woman should feel pressured to give up her friendships, passions, or independence for the sake of a man. The stigma against unmarried women, the so-called leftover women label, is nothing but a tactic to push women into choices that serve men's insecurities. So, who is really miserable in old age? The truth is, it's often the single older men, ignored and isolated, not the women. For women, marriage is not the key to happiness or security in later life. Their strength lies in their community, their sisterhood, and their independence. In short, the claim that women must marry to avoid a tragic old age is pure nonsense.
This testimony reflects a harsh reality many women face in traditional societies: the constant pressure to marry young and have children before 30. The speaker is 32, unmarried, and feels trapped by regret. She recalls how, in her 20s, she was confident, beautiful, independent, and pursued by many men. But with confidence came high standards, which she now interprets as a mistake. She believes that her time has passed and that no one is interested in her anymore. What stands out most is not just her personal regret, but the fear her mother plants in her mind. Her mother warns that without marriage and children, she will face abandonment in hospitals, have no one to sign medical forms, and grow old in isolation. The message is clear: without a husband or children, life is destined to end in loneliness, poverty, and humiliation. But here's the issue: this narrative reflects deeply ingrained patriarchal fear tactics rather than an inevitable truth. It frames marriage and childbirth not as choices, but as obligations to avoid future suffering. It reduces a woman's worth to her ability to marry young, have children, and continue the family line. The idea that women who remain single will be bullied in nursing homes, have their money stolen, or die unloved is a form of social control. It pressures women into early marriage, not for happiness, but for survival. Yet, reality shows that fulfillment in life does not always depend on marriage or motherhood. Many single women cultivate careers, friendships, independence, and communities that give them meaning and security. In the end, the real tragedy is not singleness itself. It is the fear, shame, and guilt imposed on women by family and society. True freedom comes when women are allowed to choose their own path, without being haunted by fear of loneliness.
The narrative of the 30-year-old unmarried woman presents itself as a cautionary tale about the so-called miseries of single life. But beneath the surface it reveals something quite different. On the one hand, she frames her situation as too tragic. No husband, no children, and the burden of buying and maintaining her own home. Yet the details she provides tell another story. She owns a spacious 145-square-meter apartment, enjoys freedom from family obligations, and has the financial independence to dine out, travel, and invest in her own interests. Her complaints: too many cosmetics to use, owning multiple modern appliances, needing to hire a cleaner because of her laziness, sound less like true suffering and more like the frustrations of privilege. Rather than portraying desperation, her account underscores that independence and autonomy come with both freedom and responsibility. The loneliness she feels is not inherent to being unmarried, but rather a reflection of how society equates a woman's value with marriage and motherhood. By labeling her situation as miserable, she unintentionally reveals the pressure women face. Even when living comfortably with stability and self-sufficiency, they are taught to see themselves as failures if they do not conform to traditional roles. Yet her ability to earn, study, win awards, and travel freely are achievements many married women burdened with domestic duties can only dream of. The true issue is not her single status, but the internalized belief that happiness must come through a husband and children. In reality, her story illustrates that single women can create full, dynamic lives, even if society tells them otherwise. Rather than a tragedy, her experience could be reframed as an example of independence, self-investment, and resilience in the face of outdated expectations.
This passage highlights an increasingly relevant issue: the gap between online discourse and real-life realities. The author's main argument is that much of the extreme, never marry, never have children, rhetoric online is not coming from mature women, but from adolescents, elementary and middle school students experimenting with rebellion and identity. The comparison to children shouting, "I'll never talk to you again," is particularly apartment. It reminds us that what we often perceive as cultural or generational shifts may in fact just be the noise of a younger audience testing boundaries. The danger, however, lies in how easily adult women internalize these messages. The internet creates an echo chamber where exaggerated statements can feel like consensus. A 28-year-old genuinely worried about finding a partner may read these posts and assume marriage is meaningless or doomed, when in reality, women in their 20s and 30s are actively searching for stable relationships, as the author's consulting experience shows. This mismatch between online chatter and offline truth illustrates the importance of discernment. Not every loud voice represents reality. Another valuable point raised is about gender conflicts online. Many toxic male comments, just like the anti-marriage slogans from girls, may also come from boys not even of marriageable age. The battle of the sexes on the internet might simply be teenagers arguing, yet adults interpret it as serious cultural warfare. This realization undercuts much of the panic surrounding gender wars and regrounds the discussion in perspective. At its core, the passage offers a practical message. Women should not waste their best years being paralyzed by internet rhetoric. Instead, they should approach relationships with strategy, effort, and openness. The idea that every woman can find her own ceiling in partner choice is empowering. It reframes dating as a proactive process rather than a hopeless waiting game. Ultimately, the commentary is less about dismissing feminism and more about distinguishing between childish rebellion online and adult decision-making in reality. For women who genuinely want love and marriage, the path is not blocked. It simply requires tuning out the noise and focusing on real-life opportunities.
This reflection captures a painful paradox that many modern women face. From an early age, she was told to prioritize self-reliance and career achievement, with the promise that success would naturally lead to a happy marriage. For 10 years, she followed this advice, working hard, building wealth, and creating a comfortable lifestyle. Yet when she finally turned her focus toward marriage, she discovered the harsh reality. Time had passed, social expectations had shifted, and the marriage market had become less forgiving. Her story reveals a deep conflict in modern values. On one hand, society encourages women to be independent and delay marriage until they are established. On the other hand, the same society still judges women harshly for being unmarried in their 30s, treating them as less desirable. This contradiction leaves many women in an impossible position: work too hard and risk loneliness, or marry early and risk being judged for not being independent enough. What stands out most in her words is the crushing loneliness. Despite her achievements, her home, her wealth, her stability, she feels empty. Sitting alone in her car at 2 a.m. rather than returning to her luxurious but cold house is symbolic. Material success cannot fill the emotional void of human companionship. Her struggle is not unique. It reflects a wider social dilemma. The solution may not lie in blaming women for their choices, but in reshaping cultural attitudes toward marriage, age, and companionship. Men, too, must expand their perspectives beyond youthful ideals. Likewise, women should not be forced into a false choice between independence and love. Ultimately, her story is a reminder that human connection cannot be postponed indefinitely. Success and stability are important, but love, partnership, and emotional support are equally vital for a fulfilling life.